Aloha and welcome to the 2021 Hawaii Community Foundation Scholarship Webinar. My name is Patti Duh, a proud recipient of the HCF Victoria S. and Bradley L. Geist Foundation and Deja Vu Hawaii Scholarships. You may have expected CEO and President Mike Akane to open up our event today, but Mr. Kane has graciously given me his seat at the table this morning so that I can share with you the importance of your generous support of scholarships and students like me who are on this journey towards a brighter future. First of all, to the HCF Board of Governors, Leadership Council members, and distinguished donors and friends, mahalo nui loa on behalf of the thousands of scholarships recipients who have received over $9.2 million this year in support of our education. This afternoon, I would like to share with you how your generosity has made a difference in my life. I was born and raised on the island of Oahu, and I've been residing and calling Kauai my home for the past 8 years. And I wish that I could tell you that there was a community that helped shape me into who I am today, but it was actually the child welfare system. I first entered foster care at the age of 10 years old. I was then reunified with my mom and re-entered care after unfortunate events took place 1 month before I turned 16. 6 different homes, 6 different families, 1 shelter, being separated from my 5 siblings, and a lot of trauma later. I aged out of the foster care system at the age of 18. I remember graduating from high school and being the one person who had the least amount of family and supporters surrounding me with congratulations and that I'm proud of you. And I remember enrolling in Leeward Community College because my peers were doing that. So I figured, why not me? But not because someone believed in me. I just simply told myself, why not follow the crowd? I eventually then moved to Kauai and built a life for myself. Things began to change. I discovered myself, my passion, my belonging. I reached out for support and took advantage of resources. And I saw that I began to heal and thrive. Things changed because of agencies like Epic Ohana and the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board. Things changed because of people like Laverne Bishop, who hired me for my first official job, and Delia Ulima, who saw the potential I had to be an advocate and thrive. And to my donors who took the time to know and see the true me behind my application. You literally paved the way for me to obtain my associate's degree from Kauai Community College in 2016, and then my bachelor's degree from the University of Hawaii, West Oahu in 2019. I did this all while finding out who I was, my purpose, building a family, and immersing myself into the community. Today, I stand before you today, or sit, as a former foster youth who is one of the 8% of former foster youth who earn a 2 to 4 year college degree, an alumni of the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, a Jim Casey Young Fellow or National Advocate, the Pono Process Lead at Epic Ohana, a mother who is breaking the child welfare system cycle in my family, and overall, just an individual trying to show others that they simply can. In closing, I would like to say thank you to donors and to those thinking about investing in higher education, that you folks are the ones who changed my life. You gave me a chance to recognize the difference I could make for myself and my community. That beyond money, your faith and your belief supports me and allows us young people the opportunity to know that someone is out there holding a vision of a better life for myself and others, and provide us with the motivation to keep going and reaching. When I was awarded my first scholarship, I was shocked that someone who didn't know me aside from a personal statement decided to invest in me. And I later recognized and realized that you knew me. You know us. You know the people behind the applications. You see the potential we hold and provide us with the opportunity to see it as well. While you may not see the investment bloom on an individual or one-on-one scale, you are all changing lives. And I want to say thank you for allowing me to believe in myself the way you believed in me. Thank you for helping me recognize the difference I can make in my community. Thank you for allowing me to show my daughter that anything is possible. And remember that to us, you are not just seen as someone who is donating money. You are not seen as someone who is just investing in higher education, but as someone who is investing in the well-being of a person and providing us with the support we need to take the big steps, knowing that there's at least one person who believes in us. Thank you for your time. It's my honor to welcome Mike Akane, our CEO and president of the Hawaii Community Foundation.
Mahalo, Patti. You are an amazing young lady. You're the reason why we do this work. And I can tell you, your voice today is more important than any time in your career. And I just want to thank you for being with us, sharing your story. You give people hope. You give the people coming up behind you hope. So thank you for your leadership and your commitment. We've got a great program for you folks all today. I'm excited to get into it. But before I do so, we got a couple slides I want to run through. I want to acknowledge a bunch of people. First, I want to thank the more than 100 people who are joining us today, taking an interest in the Department of Education and all that we're trying to do with our post-secondary completion. I want to acknowledge our board members. We've got a great board that leads our organization, led by Peter Ho. With us today, Jeff Arce, former Judge Mike Broderick, Jennifer Sabas, and Leah Sheehan. Thank you for your presence here today. Also want to acknowledge the many Leadership Council members throughout the state of Hawaii who help us within your respective counties. Thank you for your presence here today, and thank you for your leadership. And then also, and especially to you, the generous donors who are with us today. Thank you for your generosity. The many scholarship funds that you've established allows us to be here, to have this conversation, to play a role in higher education, and to serve kids like Patti, to give them chance, to give them some hope. Before we start, I do want to thank everyone who provided questions. We've tried to modify our presentation when Keith, Hayashi, and I met earlier to include some of your questions within our presentation. If you don't feel like we're addressing them, please hit the chat box. We will be going back to some of those questions, though, through the Q&A section. So we can jump to the slide, please. First slide. Wanted to start a little bit by just giving our viewers a little bit of background about the Hawaii Community Foundation. We've been around for over 105 years old, and thanks to the generosity of our community, we currently manage a little more than $900 million in financial assets. These assets are made up from generous people like yourself. We have over 1,000 funds we manage, and behind these funds sit real people, real organizations, some of them with us, some of them not with us. But we take this as a privilege and an honor to really move forward these dreams. I mean, the expectations of these people and these organizations were not to be mediocre. It was to achieve the goals that they set out. And in this space, they wanted to see our kids thrive, to graduate from post-secondary colleges and universities. And we hold dear to that. Last year, we administered over $142 million through grants and contracts. And in this space, we awarded a little over $9 million. So a lot of good progress being out there. Can move to the next slide, please. You know, a few years ago, we started to make a pivot to driving our decision-making around data. We wanted to understand the well-being of people in place. And so we created what we call the change framework. It's a 6-sector set of curated data across our community. Under each sector sit a bunch of subsectors, 9 subsectors total. And we aggregate more than 60 quantitative indicators to help us understand the well-being of people in place in Hawaii. And those sectors are community economy, health and wellness, arts and culture, natural environment, government civic engagement, and education. Today, we're going to talk about the E, which is education. And under the E, we're going to be talking about the subsector of post-secondary success and career readiness. And our topic is around scholarships. We can go to the next slide, please. We had a question early on about what percentage of our scholarships are going to the neighbor islands. And you can see here that a good portion, in fact, a larger percentage than the population, actually goes to our neighbor island applicants. Nearly 35% of our applicants, nearly 35% of our recipients are coming from the neighbor islands. We're humbled and grateful to be able to invest in Hawaii colleges going to these students. You can jump to the next slide, please. We're also seeing that the needs of our students are evolving. This support is needed as the cost of attending a traditional 4-year or 2-year university is inflating twice the amount as, let me reword that. This support is needed at the cost of attending a traditional 4-year university has been rising more than twice as fast as inflation, and 2-year community college a third faster. The average price of tuition at a private school institution is $38,000. At a public institution nationwide, it's $11,000. and $27,000 for out-of-state residents. At the University of Hawaii at Manoa, the in-state tuition is $11,000 and HPU is $29,000. So for a student like Patti, education at this cost is not attainable unless students receive serious strategic support from donors like you. The evolving needs of our students, as we talked about, is not just the cost, but there are serious socioeconomic barriers like access that make it very difficult. We're also seeing great need for support services. We surveyed our applicants to better understand what their needs were. And we're finding that, let me grab some of the data. I lost my place here. We heard from Patti that mentorship was critical, peer group support was critical, financial support was critical, even childcare was critical. And so these barriers are needed in order for us to overcome. We can jump to the next slide, please. This is an infographic that I think tells a very important story. Of the 11,100 students that came out of high school in 2014, these are DOE students, only 26% of those students actually completed college. And only 14% of those that actually enrolled that were, let me reword that, 26% of the non-economically disadvantaged students that enrolled actually completed. And for those that were economically disadvantaged, like Patti, only 2,300 enrolled and only 14% of that 2,300 actually completed. And so you're seeing that clear inequity for those students who have support and for those students who do not have support. You can jump to the next slide, please. So the idea of basing our decision-making around data is really, really important. It's the foundation for us to being able to create shared goals. And then hopefully, if we can create shared goals, we can create collective action. And so our theory of change in all of our space work is around common data, shared goals, collective action. And we could not think of any more important of a partner to be sharing data, to be creating shared goals, and creating collective action other than the Department of Education. So I'd like to bring us back out now if we can. You know, I had the opportunity to meet Keith Hayashi some time ago. And I think, you know, his reputation and his track record speaks for itself. Keith has been an amazing, iconic leader in the Department of Education. No one knows better than him the needs of a student. Keith has been a distinguished 32-year DOE employee with the Department of Education, most notably as the principal of Waipahu High School, a position which he has received numerous awards, including Hawaii High School Principal of the Year. Keith knows the importance of continuing education as he's been a pioneer in this area. Keith is credited for establishing the early college program in the Hawaii Public Schools and earned the distinction of Waipahu High School as the state's first nationally recognized wall-to-wall academy model. You know, I want to share a little bit of a story about Keith. About a year ago, and again, like I'd mentioned, I've known him for some time, received a call from him at about 9 o'clock at night. And he said, you know, I have a student that graduated. She's now in New York, and I've kept in contact with her, and she reached out to me, and she's in need right now. She ran into a difficult situation while she was in school there, and I need to get her home. And, you know, that's the kind of individual we're dealing with in Keith Hayashi. He cares deeply for the students that he served. We figured out a way collectively to get this student home, to be in a safe environment. And as Keith will tell you, that student continued on into her education. I'm super excited about working with Keith in the years ahead and really excited about hearing from him today. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Keith Hayashi, Interim Superintendent of the Department of Education. The floor is yours, Keith.
Thank you, Michael. Aloha, everyone. Our scholarship donors play a critical role in advancing the goals and dreams of many of our public school graduates. Donors are true partners in the work that we do to ensure students of all abilities and backgrounds exceed their own expectations, and achieve their fullest potential. Up until about a month and a half ago, as Micah shared, I was running the second largest high school in the state, and during a pandemic, no less. When I think back to my 12 years at Waipahu High School, I was fortunate to work alongside a dedicated and passionate team that nurtured a culture that's super hyper-focused. Waipahu lives and breathes the motto, my voice, my choice, my future. It's who we are, it's our why. This summer, at the commencement ceremony for the class of 2021, I was proud to announce that Waipahu's senior class had garnered a total of $31 million in merit-based scholarships. Some of those graduates are now at Yale, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, USC, and UC Berkeley, to name a few. I'm proud that schools across our state have been able to provide our students with the skills and experiences they need to be successful after they leave us. That's the purpose of public education. As leaders, we must innovate and work together to create a public school system that all of our students deserve. A system where students are always at the heart and center of every decision and every action that we take. I'm a huge proponent of exposing students to CTE, STEM, early college, and other real-world opportunities to ensure they can build the skills and have the experiences they need to succeed. The pandemic has taught us that these kinds of opportunities are all the more critical now that desired skills and abilities and workforce needs are evolving and adapting to our new reality. Every one of our students should have the opportunity to discover and pursue their passions. As part of that effort, we continue to collaborate with industry and governmental leaders and philanthropic partners, including the Hawaii Community Foundation, to prepare our students, tomorrow's leaders, for successful futures. Next slide, please. Right now, we are well into our first quarter of the school year. We continue to prioritize in-person learning because we know how critical face-to-face learning on campus is for all of our students. At school is where they receive not only instruction, but access to mental health services, healthy meals, socialization with their teachers and peers, after-school programming, and extracurricular activities. COVID demands our attention and focus to keep schools open and safe for students and employees. We are responding with heightened monitoring and enforcement. As we return to school, we are implementing a strategy we're calling 3-1-1 to get a pulse of where our students are, prioritize support for our staff members, and ensure a safe return for the entire system. The 3 represents 3 priorities for our students. Number 1, attendance. With the focus on in-person learning, we need our students back on campus and re-engaged. Number 2, academics. We need to address our students' academic needs to ensure student success. And 3, social emotional learning, or SEL. We're also assessing our students' social and emotional well-being to better assess their needs as they transition through the new school year. Assessing these areas will help us create a new baseline for our action plans going forward and help us strategically match resources to actual needs. Next slide, please. Our schools are doing a tremendous job welcoming students back to campus and are doing everything within their effort to diligently implement the core essential strategies set by the Department of Health. Promoting vaccines for staff and eligible students, staying home when sick, consistent and correct masking, and proper hand hygiene. When applied consistently and in combination for a layered approach, the mitigation strategies have proven to be effective in quickly identifying cases and preventing further spread. This can be seen in the case counts being reported at schools and offices. The increased level of transmission in the broader community is not reflected in our schools due to the large part of the hard work of our schools and employees, students, and families. This is definitely one of the most exciting times in public education as we embark on this journey together to ensure the success of not only our students, but our community and our state. Mahalo for your continued partnership and participation. Thank you.
All right, let's jump into it, Keith. I appreciate your comments. As I'd mentioned, we got a lot of questions that came in early. I want to hit a couple of them, and then we'll pull some stuff off the chat box. The pandemic obviously was a huge challenge, but as you launch back into the semester, what is the biggest challenge facing the DOE today?
I believe the challenge that we have right now is really assessing where our students are at. We're engaged in that effort, bringing our students back, continuing them in person. We've met our schools and our employees have worked really hard in engaging our students and ensuring that they're back. We want to be sure that our communities are behind us and supporting in-person learning, heeding the warnings and the suggestions of our governmental leaders and our health partners so that we can continue to ensure that our students are back in school. Once that happens, that continues to happen and our students are there engaged, we want to be sure that we're able to direct and support our students to connect to the workforce and build that system within our complexes. So the environment that we're in now, I know working together, we're definitely gonna address those issues as we're doing well right now, and we'll continue to do that. As I think about some of the challenges and how we'll go about re-engaging and supporting our students, I think back to change and the change framework, and how that proactive approach and it being visionary. I know when I was at Waipahu over the last several years, when the change framework first came out, that was and I think still continues to be how we're going to move forward as a department in preparing our students for life after high school. That collectively, together with business partners, philanthropic partners, and K-12, connecting to higher ed and to the workforce, I think is really important. And so that is that collective effort, I think, will help us to address any challenge that we face in the department.
Yeah, you started your answer off with what I thought you would say, which is really the difficulty of that continuum of curriculum through the ebbs and flows of COVID, right? And the challenges of that. How do you assess the impact of the home COVID education experience versus the in-class, and what opportunities sit in there for us to create a more resilient system to be able to pivot back and forth into those different environments, which ultimately, as I think you've recognized, we're going to be facing over the next couple of years.
Right. In talking with school leaders, with teachers, with parents and students, as I have the opportunity to go out and visit schools on a number of islands. Actually, I'm coming today to you from Lahaina Intermediate School on Maui, and visiting schools here and across our state and talking to our educators and students. They all want to be in school. They feel that everyone I've talked to is that in-person learning in school is where we engage students. And not, as I shared, not only with teachers and principals, but with students. Right? Our kids want to be here, talking with each other, engaging with each other. I was at another school on Maui a couple of weeks ago, and to see our students really embracing what they need to do to help support each other, utilizing those mitigation strategies is really important. So to answer your question, Michael, in-person learning is so important. We do also, though, have students who, for whatever reason, and parents, choose not to be in person, to be full distance. And so we are doing our best to engage those students within that virtual environment. I think the ability to pivot back and forth is also very important as we prepare for situations that may present itself down the road.
Mhm.
I think it's also really important that we leverage technology to be able to bring people together, to bring opportunities to students, but we keep in mind that technology also has limitations in the sense that nothing can really replace that personal connection and that in-person between teacher and student, student. So we look at different methods and methodologies to address student learning that's most effective.
Thank you. One of the things we recognize at HCF, and we were doing a lot of work in partnership with nonprofits throughout the state, and as you're familiar, we're addressing the ALICE population, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. Very focused on that kind of vulnerable community, and we were making collectively, with the support of the legislature and focusing on certain policy issues, we were making progress. But we think that the pandemic really set us back. Maybe as much as 5 to 7 years. It's had that type of impact on the progress that we've made as a community. Do you have any assessment of what the pandemic, what the impact is, what perhaps the negative impact the pandemic has had on the progress that the DOE has made in the past years, Keith?
Yes, the pandemic definitely has impacted all of our schools and our students, and it's most impacted, I believe, our most vulnerable populations. Our students who are in need. And while we are in the process right now of collecting data and initiating assessments to find out where our students are and where their needs are academically and socio-emotionally, we also know as educators, knowing our communities, that there is a definite need and our students will need as much support as they can for us to accelerate learning. Right? So it's not just about that pace that we've had, but we need to accelerate that pace for our students. And so for our youth who come from communities who have need and are vulnerable, that come from families where a mom and dad might be working multiple jobs, or a single parent having to work multiple jobs, to have those supports for our students in place is very important. And we recognize that as a huge need as we are assessing what's happening in the pandemic.
Keith, you've been recognized as a really forward thinker. You were the first to implement early college. You've been recognized nationally, and I think everybody's excited about your leadership. You did this at Waipahu High School, and you had control of that place. And how do you intend to take what you did at Waipahu and bring that to scale throughout the system? I would think that it's one thing to be able to really get control of one place, but now to try to implement practices that are statewide and at scale is perhaps a little different approach. Can you speak to what your strategy is and your thinking around that?
Yeah, I think as I shared, one of the benefits I think of this position is as it's afforded me the opportunity to visit schools across the state in different counties, right, and in our public schools. And the thing that is consistent is the commitment of our educators, and the willingness and the passion to support students. At Waipahu, I was very fortunate to have that in a faculty that was always willing to try new things and to move forward in the name of supporting students. But I see that also statewide in our schools, and so that is so exciting because as we look to set a focus and looking at how we prepare students as they transition from elementary to middle school, to high school, and then out to the workforce or through college into the workforce. I really believe it's about a leader-full organization and how we build leaders across the system, across Waipahu High School, but also across schools and complexes within our DOE system. And I think leveraging that passion that our educators have with parents, community, and students, collectively working towards a common focus. And how do we help prepare students for life after high school and be successful? What does that mean, and what does that look like? And so one of the things I think that we can start really thinking about is how do we help prepare our students and support all of our students, including those especially that come from our very needy communities. Getting them ready for a workforce, I think, is something that we need to look at. It's not just about the content that they're learning, that's very important, but also about the critical thinking that we're engaging students in, the innovation that's going on in the classrooms. Those different strategies that empower students, empower families, and help to move things forward. So I think, to answer your question, we need to bring people together. Let's unite amongst a common goal, and definitely the people that I've talked to and our partners, like Hawaii Community Foundation, definitely will be able to support us in helping not only our department but continue to support our communities.
Thank you. So Keith, would you say that your leadership philosophy is more form, your form over delegated decision making, or are you more of a leader that is more delegated decision making over form? Like where do you sit in that pendulum? Where does that pendulum sit? Are you one that's going to be more imposing a certain form so that you get the results that you're accustomed to based on your experience? Or are you more of a delegation of authority?
I think I really think it's a balance of both. I think depending on the situation, I think it's important to get through discussion and through communication and through that dialogue, getting the voice of people. I think because collectively we become stronger that way. I think it's also important as we do that to have a common focus, right? And I really believe the work that people are doing in Hawaii right now, and as I speak with some of my colleagues, the question becomes, how do we help prepare students and continue to help prepare them for success after high school, and what does that look like? And so I think if we frame the discussions around that, education, statewide in our public education system, and connect with our industry partners, our post-secondary, our higher education partners, with philanthropy, we will definitely get to a place that I think we can align high skill, high wage, in demand, jobs that we can, and a workforce that we can build our communities. I mean, if I can give you a quick example, Michael, is so at Waipahu, we were fortunate to have a partnership with Health Academy. And through that partnership with Hawaii Pacific Health, we had Med Assist program, right? And so students get their medical assistant certification, national certification, when they graduate high school. And so in our first ceremony, we recognized the students from that first class. And a mother came up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Hayashi, and the students are making really good money upon graduating from high school." She said, "Mr. Hayashi, my daughter's making more than I am." And I said, "Oh, isn't that great?" And she said, "No, it's not, because now I'm going back to school and I'm going to better myself. So, I think as we prepare our students and we get them credentialed and certifications or college credit before they graduate high school, that as we raise students there, that'll raise our families and then in turn raise our communities. So being able to support all of our students statewide and being able to achieve their goals will not only help those students, but I really believe will raise our communities in the process.
No doubt, no doubt. I got, as you know, we're receiving questions coming in, and I got a bunch of questions directed to me, and most of them were around, how do we see ourselves, engaging with the Department of Education? How do we see ourselves, getting a stronger relationship with the University of Hawaii? And those are two areas that we really want to improve on. We want to be a lot more sticky and integrated with you as a leader, with you as an institution, and we want to do the same with the University of Hawaii. Critical partners for Hawaii to achieve what we need to achieve. What can our donors, what can HCF do to better synchronize with you, Keith, to be a better partner with you, to better inform our partners and donors, how they can better engage to be more impactful? What's the one or two, pieces of advice that you could give us in that space?
Mike, I'm looking really forward in the position that I have right now in working together with our schools in really engaging Hawaii Community Foundation, continue to engage the Hawaii Community Foundation, especially in the area of the change framework. When I think about it and we're looking at the change and how we're going to be strengthening our communities, through health, through the arts, through government and civics and education, that brings everything together, and so I think I really am looking forward to continue to perhaps even broaden our partnerships in different areas related to I believe areas like information technology or IT or health or sustainability, projects that I believe HCF has going on right now, and how can we as a department help to support that effort, and work collaboratively, continue to work collaboratively hand in hand with you. And I think through that process, we'll as a department, we'll be able to grow. And I always say, we don't know what we don't know. And so, but I think in continuing to engage with HCF as a department, we're going to learn a lot. And then we're also going to learn about areas that we can build on, and we're hoping that, and I'm hoping that'll be a reciprocal thing, and I know it will be. And so the support that the Hawaii Community Foundation provides for our students will give them the opportunity to excel in school and beyond school. But the messaging that comes from that to their siblings, to their cousins, to their friends, as they become successful with support, that raises everything, it raises all of our students. And so I think it's a really exciting, I think it's the most exciting time right now in public education, as we expand on these kinds of partnerships.
Yeah, for the audience's benefit, in preparation for this conversation, Keith and I was informing Keith of a workforce development study that we completed back in 2020. And it was a study that interviewed all the major employers in the state of Hawaii and asking where their needs are, where is their employment needs are. And it fell in three primary buckets. It fell in IT, it fell in healthcare, and it fell in the sustainable arena. Those were the three areas that Hawaii is not currently fulfilling the employment need on. And so Keith and I were just having an early conversation about how we might be able to build some pilot programs to maybe see how we can start to model how industry and the Department of Education can better coordinate. Keith has done that already, as in the example that he used at Hawaii Pacific Health, but you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, Keith?
Sure. I think it's important as we continue to engage with industry also, that part of that is opportunity, and opportunity for our students to be exposed to actual workforce experiences while students are still in high school. You know, if we're looking at internships, we're looking at externships for teachers. You know, those kinds of experiences really help to connect what's learned in the classroom and what students can expect as they begin work in their experiences in the workforce. So internships, externships, any kind of opportunity. I think partnerships. Schools also look to bring industry and philanthropy and higher education partners to the schools, you know, to partner not only at the high school level, but we also have middle schools also looking now, you know, for partnerships. K-12 with touch spaces with our principals, you know, and it's okay to ask, you know, like, so what kinds of supports do you need, you know, within industry? And those kinds of things, I think, will help our whole system, you know, and that's where HCF plays a big role.
That's okay. Do you see this more of a school by school basis, or do you see a potential for kind of like a coordinated clearinghouse to help employers, you know, pop into different schools? How do you see that? What's the best way?
I think you know, some schools have already established partnerships with businesses, you know, so we want to be sure to keep those and expand on those. Others, even if you have those experiences, you know, I think we do need a coordinated type of entity that can help to ensure that resources are supported across our schools, you know, and I think that's definitely something that as a department, you know, we need to look at and how we can support, like Climb High Bridge is definitely one example of that, you know, of how we partner schools and school needs with business and industry, you know, and so it's those kinds of efforts. I think when we all continue to work together, great things will continue to happen.
You know, you know, by focusing on early college, it's like you created this overlap, right, into the post-secondary system that allows for more continuity, more persistence, more enrollment. What role do you see the University of Hawaii playing, you know, in partnership with you? How is that coordination going to work, and how important of a partner do you see them during your possible tenure as the future?
You know, thanks for that question, Michael. You know, I cannot say enough about the University of Hawaii and the University of Hawaii system in partnering with the Department of Education and initially with us at Waipahu High School. You know, I'm thinking back now, this is the 10th anniversary of early college. 10 years ago was when we piloted at Waipahu, you know, and it's really grown, you know, statewide due to the efforts of not only principals in the DOE and early college coordinators, but because of the partnerships that we forged with the University of Hawaii system, with the community colleges, with Hawaii P20. You know, I think that's a really great example of everybody working together to provide opportunities for students in areas that we may never have thought about 15 years ago, you know, and to provide support for our underrepresented minority youth that never thought about college as an opportunity for them. And so starting out early on with dual credit, which is great for our kids, you know, and they become excited about being a university student. And, you know, when we first started, I think even now, it's such a thrill for our high school students to get the community college ID. Just that card it sends a message, right, to families that their child, their young adult who's still in high school is also at the college in higher ed. So we started out as dual credit, and then it continued to evolve thanks to the partnership, and we began to align to academy work, you know, to the pathways. So students earn credit, dual credit, high school and college credit at the same time, um, in an effort to in a certain pathway. So, for example, in engineering, right, where students are working, we had a student this past year graduated from Leroy Community College as an Olympian. That meaning she got her associate's degree when she graduated from high school in pre-engineering, and that meant that she could transition straight into the College of Engineering at Manoa as a junior right after leaving high school. And so we had a student this year, a graduated class of 2021, that is in her senior year now at Manoa. She just graduated last year. She's a senior now. And so opportunities that we provide for our students that they would never have thought otherwise that they could attain. And that's going on. Those examples are going on statewide across schools. And now we're even partnering school to school, where schools are creating a hub, like a hub thought system, where they partner with each other. So we talk about the collective experience, embracing student and student success. I think is so important, but that only comes because people are like those at the university, our partners at the university and within the DOE are committed to supporting our students moving forward. And like with the Hawaii Community Foundation, right? One of our students, a Christian, was highlighted in HCF,
Yeah.
and how you supported, how the foundation supported him and the challenges that he had, right, in his senior year. Now, because of HCF's support, he could achieve his dreams and his goals. So it's about providing hope. I think is what is so powerful, right? It's about hope for students.
We're getting we've gotten, and I've heard this question before, but it came in through the chat box around kind of alumni engagement, Keith. Anecdotally, I think people perceive that alumni engagement by the public school system graduates has kind of diminished over time. And the cause of that could be many reasons, but it looks like with some of the recent graduates that you have, with some of the success that you've been having, especially at Waipahu, you have an opportunity to turn that engine back on again. And where is that opportunity, and maybe articulate the role that alumni could have, with their respective schools that they graduated from.
Sure. One thing that we've done at Waipahu, under the guidance of Mark Silame, our early college alumni who graduated, we wrote for a AmeriCorps Vista grant, and so those students now come back as alumni. They come back as tutors in our virtual tutors. So they actually create their own professional development through guidance, through our early college advisors, and they create the PD as alumni. They go in and support the students in cultural-based support online in supporting our early college kids. And that gives them a sense of purpose, right? I graduated from Waipahu. I'm an alumni of early college. Now it's my responsibility to give back. And that's something that we really talk about at school is, what is your purpose, right? The purpose of a student is not just to get a diploma, graduate, and make a good living. It's about, how are you going to contribute? How are you going to contribute back to your family? How are you going to contribute back to your community? Or in this case, with our alumni, how are you going to contribute now back to your school? And what is your purpose in supporting those that may not have it? And we're hoping that in having these discussions, that these students who are now the recipients of that support, 4 years down the road, they're going to turn around and they're going to be the ones now providing support for upcoming early college students. And that idea, I think, is best shown, I think, I learned it from Joy Takara, who's our student activities coordinator. And she has, for our student government students on campus, she has what's called Legacy. And the Legacy Camp is alumni coming back, planning for future students who are coming in SG. And that's continued for years. We have alumni that are 40 years old plus that are still coming back year after year to support that effort. So I'm excited to when we can continue to have our early college students who are 40-year plus now coming back and say, how might I contribute to Waipahu and to the public school system that help to support me in a lot of different ways. Yeah, and so alumni engagement, I think, is really important. And it's about looking at other ways that our alumni can contribute early on, right after they graduate from high school, so that they understand their value now and into the future in supporting their schools.
Thanks. I want to maybe just take a couple more questions. I think past superintendents, have struggled in their relationship with the legislature. I know during my time in government, when I was intentional about trying to view the legislature as a partner and really focused on communicating, we did better, and then when I took my eye off the ball and wasn't intentional, we struggled, and so I at least during my time, I learned that taking that intentionality and try to view them as a partner was better. What is going to be your strategy in working with the legislature in ways that perhaps some of your predecessors didn't?
I've been very fortunate that in the time that I started about 6 weeks ago to now, I've been fortunate to engage with various legislators at the Capitol. And I know they're really busy, but they make time to meet with me. And so I met with many of them. And every one of them is supportive of public education. They all are, and I've also been fortunate as a principal at Waipahu High School to engage and get support from our area legislators in Waipahu and Pro City, and to meet other legislators from other areas, and so definitely I know with 110% support that they are looking very much at continuing their support of public education and how can they continue to help what we're doing, and not only also in terms of how we're moving forward, looking at workforce development, looking at facilities, looking at supporting in different aspects, so I think that's really exciting. That I'm really, really looking forward to working together with them to ensure that we have world-class public education system in Hawaii. And I know working together with them, that definitely will make it happen.
Is there just maybe one last message, Keith, that you want to send? We've got about 3 minutes left, and I want to give you the platform to say, what you want to say and what you want to leave this audience with as we depart into the weekend. I'll give you that last word, and then I'll close up.
Thanks, Michael. I think it's a two-part thing. The first part is right now, part one, immediately, we are so engaged in supporting our students and ensuring that they're in school, in person, and we're delivering that instruction. There's so many, in addition to the academics, there's so many other ways that we support students in school, from mental health services to counseling to food security and many other ways. So if everyone can help continue to support us and get that message out that to our general community, that please heed the warnings of our health experts and our governmental leaders, that we want to keep our community safe, because that will keep our schools safe. And that'll ensure that our students can continue to be in person, right? And so educators will definitely continue to do our best to support our kids, and accelerate their learning. The second part of that is, as we continue to do that, we do want to look at how we engage and partner with industry and businesses, looking at higher education, philanthropy, in building a system that supports workforce development, either directly into the workforce with credentialing and certificates, or through higher education into the workforce, providing our students with those opportunities. So I just ask that everyone please continue to be open to partnering with us in the department, with our public schools, because our principals, our teachers, our counselors, everyone in our schools definitely looking to partner with all of you, and working together, we will ensure with the legislature and the board and everyone else that we'll be sure that Hawaii will be a leader in education, continue to be a leader in education in not only in Hawaii, but within the Pacific Rim and globally. So thank you very much, Micah, and to the Hawaii Community Foundation for all of your support in supporting the department, as well as our many, many students, to help them reach their dreams and provide them an opportunity to continue to hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Well, we wanna be there for you. We want to be a partner with you in the years ahead. We're willing to go where the most difficult challenges are, Keith, and there is nothing more important than assuring that our kids get a fair shot at a good education, a fair shot at getting good jobs, just a fair shot at life. And so we're going to be hyper-focused on those most vulnerable. We thank you for your leadership and your willingness to step up. I know it wasn't an easy decision for you, and we've had that conversation, but I mean, your willingness to step up and heed the call from many who advocated for you to step in and consider this position. Thank you for being willing to do that. And if we can help in any way, we want to be there for you. I also want to thank the many donors who have established scholarship funds and those who are thinking about establishing scholarship funds for us. We're going to be opening up the next application process on November 1. And so we're working very diligently right now to close up all of those loose ends on all of those new scholarships that are going to be coming out for 2022. I want to thank many of you who are contemplating another round of support for our kids. Also want to thank Patti for being willing to share her story with us. Again, you are extremely inspirational. As I'd mentioned, your time with us today and being at the table today, being an advocate for those coming behind you, Patti, I think is more important than at any time in your career. And I just want to thank you for being a champion for all of those kids that are coming up behind you. And then finally, to everyone else on this call, thank you for taking an interest in education. Thank you for taking an interest in HCF. And I look forward on behalf of our Board of Governors led by Peter Ho. Thank you for your support. Have a great weekend, and aloha, everyone. Mahalo.